Hi, I'm Christopher Warnock of Renaissance Astrology, and today I'm going to talk about astrological talismans and the magic of glamour, camouflage, and invisibility. So this all came about, I had someone ask me I have sort of, I always list the traditional sources and what they say about specific talismans and types of talismans on my web pages. And they asked me, they said, hey, explain to me about Venus dissolving enchantments. First I was like, what? And then I realized I looked back at it and I quoted from Cornelius Agrippa's Three Books of Occult Philosophy. This is book 2, chapter 22. He says that the talismans of Venus is said that they procureth concord and a strife, procureth the love of women and men, conducive to conception, are good against barrenness, cause ability for generation, and dissolve enchantments. So it's like, okay, well that's interesting. Now the question, the person was, they were thinking that, that it was like a curse talisman. I said, you know what? The sense I get from it is more that the Venus magic is dealing with what we call glamour. Now, it's interesting. Glamour, the root of that is grammar, and the grimoire comes from the same root, and so it really refers to type of magic, and it also is often very specifically used for magic that alters your appearance, often in a positive way, also for love magic. And so that's how it of course, the moderns will come in and take everything and, use it because they don't believe in magic, but they're like glamour, so the whole, celebrity stuff, Hollywood, influencers and things like that now, that's all, the glamour stuff that we think of as being glamorous. This is so much expensive, beautiful, alluring, you know, and it also is tied in with a sort of fairy magic, and not fairies in a necessarily little little magical beings that are always benign, but this also kind of they'll steal people away. Um, the traditional the She, for example, of Ireland, um, they very often use glamour. They're altering their appearance. Also love magic. Um, so it's interesting because this type of magic, is often kind of ignored by moderns. I mean, there's a tendency to think of magic as a type of technology, then giving technological effects. So lightning bolts, getting into big fights. So basically, the sort of like wuxia fights with using light and things like that. Instantly changing things. Technological. If it's love, it's total mind control. Like you just, snap your fingers or wiggle your nose and automatically someone does exactly what you want. But the glamour is much more subtle. And really what it is a type of reality warping. Um, and so what I realized in thinking about it in terms of changing appearance, that the glamour also ties in with invisibility and then also with camouflage. Because again, what we're thinking about invisibility, it's like Harry Potter, is that you got some kind of cloak of invisibility, and it physically bends the photons, so it actually is physically invisible. So if you were to take a picture there would be nothing there. Um, Really, what we're dealing with again, and camouflage is very helpful because highly effective, used by all sorts of animals and plants and things like that. And really, what's happening is not that you're not seeing it's not seeing something, it's that you're not aware of it. So really what this is a manipulation of consciousness. And this, the focus often is on, the physical, but that physical is a means to changing the consciousness and basically being, so someone's unaware of you. It's very often used by, prey animals. And it's interesting. So like I said, this is a type of consciousness magic. Ultimately, my view, and I've got another video, you can see a link to there on the page, as consciousness is the basis for astrology and magic. And really what's happening is if you change consciousness, if that's the ultimate reality, a change in consciousness is a change in reality. So this is really giving us a very, very specific example of how magic is changes in consciousness. So we'll talk a little bit about camouflage and talk a little bit about different types of camouflage. It's actually a very intricate subject. You can take a look at it. I was looking at Wikipedia, very interesting, lots of useful information. And they differentiate between masquerade and crypsis. So masquerade is, again, I think what we think of camouflage is it makes you look like something else. So like you have a little, a little a bug or insect or something that looks like a twig, or you have these, again, insects. They don't have a stinger, but they look like a wasp. So they look dangerous. So they get left alone because they have, they're yellow and black striped. They look like a wasp. So that's masquerade. Crypsis is interesting because crypsis is to make you difficult to detect or recognize as a discrete object. You essentially blend into the background. So, and again, this I think is really interesting because what's happening is it's there in plain sight. You can see it visually, but there's not consciousness of it. You're not putting the pieces together. And this is what we're doing at any moment. We're not, it's not like we're a machine and it's like, we're mechanically recording everything. It's like we're actually actively taking these raw sense data that comes in and we're based on our, again, on what we're able to see or not. I mean, humans can only see in a particular visual range. But more than that, it has to do with, again, what are our cultural background, and then also, what are we paying attention to? I mean, it's amazing how you can pick out one thing that's important. I remember reading about this in Vietnam, soldier, very experienced. He'd been on a couple tours, and he could sleep, while there was artillery barrage, a U.S. artillery barrage going out really near him, incredibly noisy, sleep right through it. But if there's a rustle in the bushes 50 yards away, he immediately woke up. So even in a sleep, he has this differentiated consciousness in terms of what he's going to pay attention to and what he's not going to pay attention to. Because clearly we can't pay attention to it, of everything. And it's interesting. It's one of those early theories about LSD is that what it does is takes away that filter. And so the filter of consciousness that we have, socially, and also just has been built up, sort of physiologically as well, is taken away. And with psychedelics, and that you're actually having this complete awareness of what's actually going on, and that, again, that's sort of you can't function under that. You have to have this sort of reducing valve. You have to have this sort of filtering of consciousness, and only pay attention to discrete things. So camouflage essentially takes advantage of that, and there's again a whole variety of different ways of doing that. Like I said, the bug that looks like a twig. What's interesting about it though is that, again, it's not just, like I said, being invisible in terms of not being seen. There's different types of camouflage. For example, disruptive camouflage. And this was used, for example, how these really weird patterns, almost like sort of cubist or whatever, on ships in World War II. Zebras are a good example. There's a hypothesized that the reason they have these really distinct stripes is that they're dazzle camouflage. And when they move, they have the patterns break up. So, I think that's, again, goes, like I said, it's not so much about seeing, though there's a focus on the visual stuff, even in the scientific stuff I look at. It's really about consciousness and being, and so that the observer is not conscious of you. Now, an example I've used in some cases, and this I think is an interesting one, is if you have something valuable and you want to hide it, I just put a trash bag over it. In our society, we're very much programmed. Trash is, you don't even want to look at it. You don't even think about it. It basically edited out of your consciousness. So it's a good way of hiding stuff is to, like I said, put a trash bag over it. People don't pay attention to trash. Again, blending into the background, disruptive coloration, these are all used. So if we expand that from the animal perspective, if we think about it, think about the predatory use of this sort of altering consciousness. And this is sort of the dark side of glamour, as like scams, cons, particularly romance scams. And you think about that, you go online and you meet this really amazing person and they're really paying attention to you and all that. And then they say, oh, I need some money, got to travel or have some problem, and you start sending them money. I mean, I think that's a really excellent example of exactly this kind of magic, but in this case using a sort of predatory way. And they're blending in, they're giving exactly the sensory inputs that are necessary to create this illusion, and then they get the result that they want. Again, the flip side of that, again, is from a practical standpoint, you think of, not being predated, it's a sort of blending in. So in other words, you wouldn't be flashing your money around. You wouldn't post all this expensive stuff that you bought on Instagram. You wouldn't boast about expensive vacations. you'd be very careful about, you wouldn't be living large. You want to basically, come across as, not having the amount of money you have. And again, that's a protective thing. It's like if people know you've got all this money, you're making yourself a target. Um, and I think one of the things that highlights about this is that any kind of magical stuff is almost always going to be in addition to taking practical, steps. And this is one thing that Jason Miller, one of the things I love about what he says you got to have a plan. You can't expect to just the talisman or the magic. He's using magic and not so much talismans, but you can't expect the magic to work all by itself. He says if you want to do money magic, you need to get your financial life together. You need to make sure you have sources of income. You need to have a budget. You need everything planned out, and then the magic comes in and supplements that and helps accomplish those goals that are already practically in place. So, that's what I'd say about again, you have the practical use of, if you don't want to, attract attention, then you don't, like I said, flash money. So then, from a magical standpoint, I just want to talk about some examples of talismans that, fit with the camouflage and invisibility and the glamour. For invisibility, one of the most interesting talismans we have is Cazimi Moon, and you can check out the link to that. Guido Bonatti, who was a medieval Italian astrologer, he says that if you want to do something and you want it to not be known, essentially if you want to have invisibility, you use an election where the moon is going from combustion. So combustion is when the planet is within 8.5 degrees of the sun. If it's with 8.5 degrees of the sun is so bright it blots it out, you can't even see it. And normally that's considered to be an affliction. In this case, the Cazimi Moon is actually very useful because you can allows for invisibility. What I typically do with these is I like to have the moon in either Taurus or Cancer, and they want to have them coming from combustion, which is less of a weakness than going to combustion. And so that essential dignity compensates for the combustion and to a certain extent, but also you specifically want to have combustion because that's what you're getting the invisibility on. So you can check that out, check out that Cazimi Moon, and that's really useful for invisibility. But again, if someone's getting that talisman and expecting that they're going to blink out of sight and nobody can see them, no matter what they do, like Invisible Man or something, that's just completely unrealistic. What it is going to do is help you, like I said, stay below the radar, but you need to really work on that as well in other areas in a practical way as well. Another example of invisibility is in a protective setting is with algal. Now you can check out algal. I have another video about black and white algal, different manifestations of it. The white algal is basically shielding or filtering. And so as part of, I do white algal, that's the manifestation of algal that I work with most consistently. I do it basically every day. In my short invocation of algal, I ask basically to be under the radar, to be invisible to enemies. And so it's even better than necessarily a shield is that they don't even see you in the first place. You're not even going to be attacked in the first place if you're not even a target. So I think that that's very useful of it. And again, our bronze algal can be used for that. We should have white agate algal. I'm hoping to have those back in stock really soon, to have those available. But again, part of the practical thing of that is don't go out and start causing trouble. And I don't. I mean, for example, I don't go online and get into big arguments with people. I don't attack people. I do my best to stay under the radar, to keep calm, and to not cause trouble. And then I use the magic as a protective addition to that as well. And so glamour, again, that brings us right back to Venus. I mean, as you can imagine, Venus is a planet of glamour, and not just in a metaphoric sense, but in the actual sense of being the one that's doing this sort of magic. And it's interesting because the kind of results that people report for me from Venus talismans are things like, if they go out in public, they're much more relaxed. It's feeling much easy to be social, more relaxed and easygoing in social settings. That people that they're attracted to are also attracted to them, and that old boyfriends and girlfriends might contact them. And so again, this is the sort of subtle but noticeable effects that it's not a reason. And again, what the actual effect for you with a talisman is impossible to determine, and there may not even be any discernible effect at all. But this is the kind of stuff that happens. And I think that, it was, like I said, very interesting to me, the whole idea that rather than magic being some type of technology, rather than magic being some kind of obscure type of beams or rays or something, rather than it being instantaneous and overwhelming and having all this power, I mean, that's a nice fantasy. That's nice, to watch in a movie or read in a book or something like that. But the reality of it is that magic is real, and because magic is real, it has to operate in the real world. So obviously it can't be instantaneous and all powerful. Our magicians will rule the world. It's interesting. I had somebody say to me, is talking about Indonesian folk magicians, and I was giving him the same rap about it not being instantaneous or all powerful. He said, "Oh no, it is with Indonesian folk magicians." And I'm like, well, why don't they rule the world? If they can just snap their fingers and get $1 billion, it's like they really should be running everything. And I don't see that the Indonesian folk magicians are running the world, which is not to say that their magic is not effective. It's just that if it's real, it can't be all powerful. So if we get a more realistic idea of what's possible, that really kind of opens up the realm of what we can actually do with it. And I think it's really interesting for experimentation and then for practical use as well. But I think ultimately when we come back to this idea that the ultimate basis of magic is consciousness, and that means that when we're dealing with spiritual or psychological effects, or we're trying to alter consciousness, particularly in a subtle way, and in combination with practical stuff. I mean, for example, like I said, it's amazing. You watch these videos, makeup videos, to start off with somebody who looks very plain, and by the end of the session that they're through, they look really incredible, but it's more than just the physical. The physical aids the mental, and it buys into all the programming and everything, and that we're already under. And it's basically taking advantage of the fact of how people's consciousness is structured, and then working with that and warping that in a positive way. And makeup's perfectly fine. I mean, you make yourself look beautiful. That's certainly you can't really complain about that. And so it's in fact something that we're all doing all the time. We're all trying to put our best foot forward. You think about a job interview. You're going to present the best possible version of yourself that you can, as long as you don't shade into being false, or lying. That's really not problematic, or you're not using it to manipulate people in a really negative way. So very interesting. Like I said, check out the talismans that I mentioned there, and recognize, like I said, when you're talking about invisibility, what we're really talking about is consciousness, and ultimately what we're really talking about is the manipulation of consciousness in magic. And that's really, like I said, the ultimate basis of magic and astrology. And this is just a very, I think, a useful and practical way of taking advantage of it. So again, check those out, and I look forward to, I found this a really fascinating subject, and I hope you find it as interesting as I did.